Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another 2026 Senate prediction. This time it's for the month of July 2025, and we got news of some retirements so far. And let's get into it. So, starting off, we're going to do the safe red and safe blue seats. These are seats won by either party by a 10% margin or more. So, they're just not going to be competitive at all. Let's just get into set up the safe red seats, then the safe blue seats. Okay. I think we hit most of the seats that are safe for either side. Let's start off with Alaska. Alaska's really only competitive if Mary Patola decides to run for Senate. However, she has indicated she's more likely to run for governor as of now, so that would make this a safe red seat. In Virginia, I'm pretty sure the Democratic incumbent is most likely running, but he has not declared whether or not he is going to be running. In all likelihood, I think it's likely he is going to run. He already raised quite a substantial amount of money. And on the Republican side, the only candidate who could make this race really close is Glenn Youngkin, and he's unlikely to run. He's probably going to still be governor of Virginia, or just well, he was going to not be governor of Virginia at the end of 2025, but I think he's more likely to run for 2028 president instead of running for Senate in 2026. So for now, I would be putting Virginia as safe blue, assuming Glenn Youngkin isn't going to run for Senate in the state. Going over to New Mexico, the Republicans don't really have a good bench here, so it's going to be likely Democratic. In Nebraska, Dan Osborne is running for Senate again. He made this a close race against Deb Fischer last time around. And so far, the early polling has him in a very competitive race, but it is his own internal poll, so a lot of doubts about that. It's kind of what we saw last time, and he still lost by 6. So Pete Ricketts, he's a stronger candidate than Deb Fischer, so I'm going to be putting this race as a R+8 race. I think Ricketts wins by about an 8% margin in Nebraska. Let's head over to Texas next. And John Cornyn, he isn't looking too good in the Republican primary polling. They pretty much, every poll he is down. He needs Trump's endorsement to really win here. He's unlikely to get that endorsement. It looks like Ken Paxton's going to be the nominee. That is kind of bad for Republicans if he is the nominee. Some polling has shown he's only up by 2 points against the most likely Democratic candidate. The Democrats, on the other hand, all 4 of these likely candidates, Allred, Castro, O'Rourke, and Tallarico, they have held a meeting to decide who should run for Senate and who should run for governor. I think Colin Allred's going to be running for Senate again since he outperformed Harris by the most. Beto O'Rourke didn't outperform as much, and in 2022 he didn't really do amazing. So it's probably going to be Allred running against Paxton. But I still think Paxton wins. This is an R+13 state, and I think Paxton wins by a margin of 5 points in the state of Texas. All right, heading over to Ohio next. Ohio's really only competitive if Sherrod Brown decides to run for Senate again. And right now, he's more likely to run for governor. So, assuming he isn't running, this is going to be a likely Republican race. And John Husted, he is a strong incumbent. He won by pretty large margins in the past. So, I don't really think he's in any danger as long as Sherrod Brown doesn't run. So, I'm putting Ohio as likely R. And I think we'll head to Iowa next. So Iowa's interesting. So far, Joni Ernst, she's indicated she is running for re-election at the time I'm making this video. But there's been some rumors that maybe she might run for governor instead of running for Senate. She said a pretty bad quote in the past in this race. She goes about the Medicaid cuts, well, we're all going to die one day during a town hall. That is going to be played relentlessly against her if she does decide to just keep running for Senate. That's definitely going to hurt her with independents that are probably going to go Democratic here in a blue midterm year. And it looks like J.D. Sloden's likely going to be the nominee for Iowa Democrats. It could be Zach Walz as well. He's potentially could be the candidate. But I think Sloden's the best candidate for this race. So for now, oh yeah, we also had early polling out of Iowa too. Against a generic Democrat, she's only up by 2, but this is a Democratic-leaning pollster. So take that with a grain of salt. For now, I think Joni Ernst, she is running for Iowa Senate. I think she's only going to win by 4 points as of right now. I think she's vulnerable. Democrats are really going to try to take her down. And in Iowa voters are kind of elastic. We see wild swings there all the time in Iowa. We saw it swing wildly to the right from 2020 to 2024. So it could have a wild swing in a midterm year. That's definitely possible. It is a smaller state too. So I would put this as a lean Republican state. I think Ernst is only on track to win by 4 points as of right now, and I think she's very vulnerable. Let's head over to Minnesota next. And in Minnesota, the Republicans don't really have a good bench to run in the state either. Democrats, it's most likely going to be Flanagan as the nominee, so I have her winning by 6 points. In New Hampshire, we have Chris Pappas up against, I believe he is Scott Brown. He used to be senator from Massachusetts, and he had a failed 2014 run for New Hampshire Senate, losing by 3 points in a red wave year. So he's in a blue-leaning year. That's going to be bad for him. So the environment's already worse for him, and he failed before in 2014. And Chris Pappas, he outperformed Harris by 6 points in his congressional district. So he's a proven contender for New Hampshire. So I think right now, Chris Pappas, he's going to win by about 5 points. So I'm having this race as likely blue. I don't really think Scott Brown really has a great chance at winning New Hampshire Senate as of right now. And let's go down to North Carolina because Tom Tillis has announced recently that he is not seeking re-election to a third term, which is really good news for the Democrats. They don't have to deal with unseating an incumbent senator, which is always pretty tough. And on the Republican side, there isn't a lot of really strong candidates. I guess Pat Harrigan would probably be the strongest candidate for Republicans to run here. But then again, they're losing Tom Tillis. He was more of a moderate candidate in the Senate, which would have been good for them to win over independent voters. So that's definitely going to hurt them. I really think Willie Nickel, if he's the candidate, it's probably a tilt blue race, maybe even lean blue. You can make that argument because the incumbency advantage is gone for the Republicans. And Roy Cooper, he'd be kind of a lock if he was the nominee for this race. I really don't think he would lose to anybody in the race. There's also the possibility that Mark Robinson decides to change his mind and decides to run, because on Twitter he's kind of seeming like maybe he's kind of considering it. So for now, I'm putting this race in North Carolina as lean Democratic, just because Tom Tillis has decided he's not running for re-election. Makes it a lot easier for Democrats to really win this race. So let's head down to Georgia next. And, Brian Kemp, he isn't running for the Republicans. It makes it a lot easier for Jon Ossoff to win re-election. And in all the polls so far, he seems to be leading. The most likely candidate is probably going to be Mike Collins. And so far, Mike Collins has lost in every single poll so far to Jon Ossoff. So I'm putting Jon Ossoff as a favorite to win this race. It is lean Democratic, simply because Brian Kemp isn't running. This makes it a lot easier for the Democrats to win the seat. Now we're heading over to Michigan. Michigan, we got 3 candidates. Oh, I would say 4. El-Sayed, McMorrow, Stevens, and Joe Tate. So far in the Democratic primary polling, Stevens is the front runner. However, McMorrow is right behind here, and I think she's the right compromise candidate between El-Sayed, who's more progressive candidate, and Stevens, who more is a moderate. McMorrow is right in the middle, so that means I think she's likely to win the primary just because she's in the middle ideologically in this. So I think that McMorrow would probably be the best candidate here. She wouldn't alienate progressives, and she could appeal to moderates at the same time. So I think she wins the Democratic primary, and in the early polling, let's take a look here. So far, that some of the Democrats are leading. Stevens is leading in most polls. McMorrow. It's interesting. This is among definite voters. Okay, so there's a lot of undecideds here. This could be due to name ID, but I still think McMorrow would be the favorite against Mike Rogers. He underperformed Trump. He lost in a red-leaning year, so I don't think there's any indications he's going to win in a blue-leaning year in a midterm environment. I really don't see Mike Rogers pulling off that victory in 2026, considering he underperformed Trump in this state, while Trump kind of won Michigan by like a 1.7% margin, which is a pretty dominant win in politics. So I don't think Mike Rogers is all that good of a candidate anyway, putting this as a lean Democratic race. And then we're going over to Maine. Maine's interesting because a lot of Democrats aren't considering running at the time of making this video. The best candidates for them to run would be Jeanette Mills. She has a positive approval rating, like a +9. I think she would definitely be able to unseat Susan Collins in this race. They could run the Speaker of the Maine House of Representatives. I think he can definitely win in this race as well. So they have two options here. A lot of people have declined to run, or either running for governor in Maine. But there's also the chance that Susan Collins doesn't decide to run at all. She could always decide to back out of it. She is on the older side, so that's always a possibility. And her approval rating is quite low, especially with independent voters. It is quite low. I see in one poll having her at a 14% approval rating, which is really tough for her to win here. But for now, since no Democrat has really come out and announced that they're running here, that's like any good Democrats right now, I think someone good will run, at least one. But for now, I'm putting this as a tilt Republican race in Maine. But things could always change. Susan Collins can decide not to run, or the Democrats can decide to run a good candidate. But really, they just need someone to run here. For now, it's tilt Republican. Susan Collins is very vulnerable. So now I look at this map, and I think, what are the ways Democrats could get to a Senate majority? And obviously, it'd be to win Maine, and somehow catch lightning in a bottle and win Iowa, which I just kind of doubt. I mean, Trump's approval rating would have to be terrible in Iowa for them to really lose this race. So that only gets them to 50 seats. They would have to convince Lisa Murkowski. Earlier in June, she was considering, well, if the Democrats get to 50 seats, maybe I could go as an independent and caucus with the Democrats. She was open to doing that. So that's a possibility for how the Democrats could get to a Senate majority in 2026. But right now, I'd still say the Republicans are the favorite to win the Senate. I think they have an 80% chance at winning the Senate, while the Democrats have a 20% chance, hinging on Murkowski swapping parties in a scenario you get to 50 seats. So that's kind of how I see this race going. They still have to hold a lot of toss-up races like Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, while flipping Maine and Iowa, which it's going to be tough to flip Iowa. It's going to be definitely tough, and I just don't really see how they win in Texas statewide, even against Ken Paxton. It's such a red state. It's a very large state population-wise. They have to flip a lot of voters. So this is how I currently see the state of the race in the 2026 Senate map. Things could change, especially in Maine. They could maybe get to 49 seats, the Democrats, realistically. So that's currently how I see things going. If you're new to this channel, you enjoy political videos like this one, you should definitely consider subscribing and appreciate it a lot. Other than that, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next video.